welcome to Sports Uncorked. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name's Rachel McCarter, and I'm your host, and we have a really exciting episode on deck. We're going to talk about the mathematical equations that have come across our screen as it relates to the college football playoffs this week. The 5 plus 11 format, the 4 plus 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3 format. What it seems like is we're moving to 16 teams at some point, but what does the automatic bid situation look like? And then there have been some adjustments with the seating as well. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And I think Marissa and I are both so excited to be talking about college football again as we inch closer to that week 0 game schedule. But first, as always, I'm going to introduce a new drink to you this week. And since we're kicking off summer for a lot of our kiddos being out of school, I was kind of digging through the refrigerator looking to clean out some things. And I ran across what I think is a pretty disgusting beer, but was left over from Cinco de Mayo. Corona Extra. Kind of one of those staples that people will bring over to a party, but people drink it, but they don't really love the taste. So something that I've been doing since I was in college is turning Corona Extras or Corona Lights into adult Shirley Temples. And so what you do to do that, and what I think makes the beer taste actually really good, is to take kind of your emergency grenadine that you have around the house, and just put a little bit of it into the Corona. So it takes kind of a skunky, stinky beer. Ugh, I just don't know if anybody really enjoys the taste of that Mexican lager. It's like a pretty bad Mexican lager. But if you put grenadine in it, turn it a little bit red. I usually put, 2 to 3 little drops in there, depending on how sweet you want it to be. Maybe I'll put a little bit more. And then you can just kind of flip it upside down, get it all mixed up. Woo, woo. Didn't expect that, you guys. Clearly not a science major here. We've got a lot of foam, but what it did take the taste of that bitterness and that bite off of it without adding too much sugar, and it doesn't look like you turned the beer red. What a disaster. Cheers. I'll let this settle down and we'll bring Marissa in. Hey, Ress.
Hey, Rach, what's going on?
Well, I just exploded my beer. This is why I don't drink beer anymore. I just literally exploded it trying to do a little science experiment with adding grenadine. And I'm a finance person for a reason.
Well, they didn't even change the color, it doesn't look like.
I know. It's. Have you ever added grenadine to a Corona?
No.
So I learned this trick back in college because I did not like the taste of Corona. I mean, what we drank was like Keystone and Coors Light, which had no flavor. So this did have like a little bit of a skunky flavor. Yeah. And we used to add like, a little bit of grenadine, like 5 or 6 drops of grenadine to it to take that like skunky taste and flavor and smell out of it. So it doesn't add like a lot of sugar, but it does take away like the nastiness of Corona. So that's my little trade secret on how to power through leftover Corona that's left at your house.
So I've always been a fan of just putting like a ton of lime in my Corona, so I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah. I know. It's harder to like just have random grenadine on hand than it is to have random lime on hand.
I was going to say, that's not something I keep stocked in my bar, although I think I need to get better about keeping stuff stocked in the bar. I have found that people are now just not asking for a glass of wine or just a beer when they come to your house. It's like, hey, do you have stuff for a whiskey sour? And I'm like, I don't own mixers like that. I have ginger ale. I've got juice. That's it.
I'll have a smoked old fashioned, please.
Okay, you'll have to ask my dad for that. He's the one with all of the gas that makes a good smoked old fashioned.
I think I know what I'm bringing to your house when I come visit.
Love it.
So you're trying something. I'm drinking a Corona. You're drinking something new, which I'm interested to hear about.
This really cool, it's like a canned wine spritzer. I don't know if you can see in the light, but it's called Tipsy. And it's surprisingly very, very yummy. It's a limonada wine spritzer. It's very clean, like not too dry, not too sweet. It's got like the perfect amount of bubbles. Like I will definitely go and buy some more of this. And like the crazy thing is that I was never really a big fan of like canned wine, but like shockingly, it takes me a really long time to go through a bottle of wine, and I feel bad because it's like I open up a bottle and I have like a glass or two, and then it sits in the fridge, and then it goes bad. And so I am like shifting my shopper behavior for sure. I'm a big fan of the canned wine.
So you're a can or a box girl?
um, I wish I could say I was a boxed wine girl, but it's been a long time since I've slapped a bag, so not
Okay,
recently.
okay, girl. Listen, we're gonna have to do a blind, like, bottle
Boxed
versus
wine.
bag. Don't you feel like that would be a fun experiment to do? Like,
Oh
line
yeah,
up a couple, like, whites or reds and
for
have to
sure.
guess whether it's from a bottle or from a bag?
Yeah, I actually really like that idea. I think that people would be incredibly surprised that they actually like what I actually think it's called black box wine.
Yeah, Black Box and Voda Box. We'll have to loop Lou in on this because
Yeah.
he is a wine snob, but he also has a couple of good recommendations for box too.
Oh, okay.
All right, so you have now, it's called Tipsy.
Mm-hmm.
Tipsy canned. It's almost like a mimosa. Is that
It's
right? It's like a
got
wine spritzer.
it's a wine spritzer, but it has like a very clean. It's got like a really clean juice taste to it.
Okay.
But it's not like it's kind of like a lemony mimosa. Like it's got the right amount of bubbles. It doesn't taste like too winey. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's really clean and I really like it.
What's our
Maybe because it's
alcohol
from Whole
content?
Foods. It's from Whole Foods, so it's probably like $12 a can, but it's really good.
So worth it.
Yeah, it's really yummy.
What's your alcohol content on that? Is
Oh my
it
gosh,
worth
probably like
$12?
2%. Hold on, let's
Yeah,
see. Six.
that'll get the job done.
Just a couple points more than a hard seltzer, so I'll take it.
Yeah, take that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we needed some drinks on the show this week. I mean, we have them virtually every week, but
Yeah.
I feel like my mind, I had to like get a calculator out this week because the NCAA has been throwing a lot of stuff at us that involve math. So, two kind of formats that they've come out with that have gained some traction and popularity are the 5+11, meaning
Mm-hmm.
5 conference bids or 5 automatic bids to conference winners,
Mm-hmm.
and then 11 at-large bids.
Yep.
And then there's 4+4+2+2+1+3. I'm like counting with
So
my fingers. How
outrageous.
that is 16, right? It sounds like we're moving towards 16 regardless of which model.
Mm-hmm.
But four automatic bids for the Big Ten, four for the
Yep.
SEC, two for the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
No, Big 12. Big 12.
Big
I'm
12,
always going to feel like there's
Big
Pac-12.
10, Pac. Well, there is no Pac 12 anymore. It's like Pac
There's no
2, right?
the Pac-2, and like we haven't heard, have they? Because I think they're Pac-5 and they need 6, so we haven't like really heard anything about that yet. But
Right.
so two for the Big 12,
Mm-hmm.
two for the ACC,
Mm-hmm.
one for Power 5, and then 3 at-large bids, which would include
Yes.
like a Notre Dame. Yeah.
It's like they are overcomplicating this. They have been, ever since they introduced the 12-team bracket playoff, they have overcomplicated this entire process. And I do not understand. I take that back. I understand why they're doing it, but it doesn't make any sense why they have to make it so complicated. Um, it's just been so interesting because we're seeing so much coming out as far as like what the coaches meeting that's going on down in, I think it's Florida, and then we've got legislation that's in the House right now that's affecting the NCAA. It's just like it is not supposed to be this hard. It really isn't. But I guess we can thank NIL because that is the thing that just threw a wrench in this whole operation. I cannot believe how much three little letters have just thrown this entire thing for a loop. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I get it, but I don't. I get it. I do, but it doesn't make sense because now you're going to have teams that really don't have any business getting automatic bids into the playoffs.
So, like, are you talking
we'll have
about
to see
under
how it
the?
plays out, because we didn't think that the whole point of the 12-team bracket this year was to get out schools from the SEC from being in the playoffs, and they didn't want to see the same 4 teams going head to head for the national championship game. And then, like, lo and behold, it was pretty much the same. I mean, the only difference was, we still had Ohio State and Georgia at the end of the day. So we'll just have to see. I mean, I think that maybe it'll make sense if it all plays out, but they have truly overcomplicated this. They really have.
So I think they're trying to fix some of the flaws that we had with the first 12-team playoff, right? So they've announced this week that we're going away from conference champions get that first round bye. So the first 4 get the first round bye, which we all thought was flawed last year. So they have at least made that change, and it'll be based on your ranking, which I think aligns more with the 5+11 model.
Yeah.
Do you like, what are your thoughts? Do you have a preference on one or the other? Do you like one more than the other?
I don't think I have I don't have a preference, because based on what I have read, the whole point is for schools that don't have the same advantages for exposure as other schools. So I don't have a preference if that's the point. What I do have an issue, what I take issue with, is teams like Ohio State that are in a position to take control over the entire conference because of how I don't I don't I don't know exactly, but I don't trust Ryan Day. I think he's very sneaky, and I think that he will pull a page right out of a freaking NFL playbook and start tanking and manipulating the season and manipulating the game so that he can put himself in a position to win at the end. So that, and then we got psychopath Dan Lanning, who will probably find the ultimate loophole to take advantage of it. That's my only problem. I get it if the whole point is to benefit teams that don't have as much exposure. What I don't want is for the bigger schools to take advantage of it. Alabama included. I will say that. Fair. I am fair if not anything. But like, we need to allow some schools that have decent players. And like, it kind of goes back to teams like Boise State that had Ashton Genty, who was a total powerhouse, that wouldn't have gotten the same exposure if he hadn't been as good as he was. So that's my soapbox.
So, unpopular opinion in the SEC, but I kind of like the 5+11 model a little bit more, because I don't like the entitlement of giving the Big Ten and the SEC 4 slots regardless.
Yeah.
Last year we did have 4 teams from each of the conferences that had a deserving position. But do we always think that there's going to be 4 teams from the Big Ten that are deserving of spots? I mean,
no.
I wouldn't want to see like a 7-5 Minnesota get in just because they're allotted 4 spots.
Right.
Now, I don't like the entitlement of these mega conferences saying that we will agree to this, but only if we are guaranteed spots. I think that gets away from exactly what we're trying to accomplish with an expanded playoff. To your point, giving teams that maybe would not have had the exposure or the availability to get into the playoffs. I think every team earns their spot based on the rankings that the committee comes up with.
Yeah.
I think the top 16 get in regardless. You get in if you win your conference championship at the seed ranking that you go in at. But I don't like this whole we're going to be guaranteed certain spots by different conferences, because that takes away from the unbiased piece of what we're trying to get at the heart of this.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. And it's funny because I don't know if you recently saw some of these new rule changes that came out for the NFL, but they're going to they're talking about potentially going to the full seeding kind of program where now we're going to have teams that are going to have better records that are going into the playoffs versus like who played. I just like, it doesn't make any sense. Like who beat a conference champion in week 1 through 4 versus who beat a conference rival in the last 4 weeks of the season. So that is less complicated than what they are proposing now. But again, I agree. I just feel like there's we've got the wrong people that are behind this move. I don't trust some people in certain rooms that are okay with these decisions. And like, unfortunately, I'm a little disappointed in Sankey from the SEC for being very determined in not saying things that I think he should be saying and making decisions that are fair, because he is thinking with the wrong part of his mind when it comes to this. And I think that he's being so mysterious and like he's keeping things really close to the chest, which I get, but like we're also the conference that is causing a lot of this issue. And now the ball, the metaphoric college football ball is in the SEC's court. And so now you've got one conference that is managing everything. It's getting too wild. I don't like it. It makes me feel very, very uneasy. And I don't know, like, if we're going to get to a point where it's like the NFL, where it's no longer about sport, it's about the business of entertainment. So it's just a little shady, but we'll see. There's too much.
I do think the expanded playoffs good. The way that they structure it's going to be important. And one of the downstream impacts of that Sankey has come out and said is there's a lot of pressure outside of the SEC for the SEC to start playing 9 conference games like some other conferences do. I think that element of, are we going to go to a 4-4-2-2-1-3 model, makes a lot of schools in the SEC and the ADs feel better if we have 4 guaranteed spots about moving towards 9 conference games, because we know that the strength of schedule in the SEC is harder.
Teams from the other side of the Mississippi River into the SEC. Like, what? That rant is for another day. But, like, also, I have some feelings about certain games that are steeped in deep tradition getting lost in the shuffle of guaranteeing 9 conference like, I'm sorry, but I would plan a whole wedding around the 3rd weekend in October when I know that Alabama is going to play Tennessee. Like, I plan my Thanksgiving plans around Iron Bowl being that Saturday. So, like, did a little bit of a shuffle this year. I'm not going to lie, I think it made a lot of people mad because we are so used to seeing certain rivalries during certain weekends because it's steeped in tradition. So it's like, I'm sorry, but if we're still going to allow Ole Miss to be called the Rebels, I should be allowed to have my Alabama versus Tennessee game the 3rd weekend in October.
What I don't understand is, why would adding another conference game mess up rivals? I mean, it's like you're just replacing Alabama playing Mercer with Alabama playing Vanderbilt. I mean, like, you can still keep some of those games that are traditional on the calendar and move around the scheduling of some of the cupcake teams. Because I don't think it has to be that hard.
Because you're going to have teams that are going to get burned out super early in the season. Because if you've got UGA playing Texas A&M and then Florida and then Ole Miss and then Alabama 4 weekends in a row, they're not going to be in the playoffs. They're going to run out of steam.
They're already doing that. Doing that. And I feel like that's where Sankey needs to, and what we saw be a little bit lopsided last year, is like Texas, their path to the playoff was a lot different than Georgia's path to the playoff.
Agreed.
Right? So I think when evaluating 8 versus 9 games in conference, the strength of the teams that are being scheduled also needs to be taken into account, because you can't just play Vanderbilt, Kentucky, South Carolina, Georgia, and Mississippi State and call that 5 of your conference games, because that's not equal to 5 true gauntlet conference games.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
So I think it can be done. I think 9 games can be done. But the other question is, Sankey has said he needs clarity on what the committee is going to place value of strength of schedule on versus some of the other categories, win-loss being one of them. Because what we saw last year were teams that were maybe more deserving than some of the teams that actually were in the playoff left out because they had more losses, you know, a 3-loss team that played in the SEC, but had a much harder strength of schedule. So there needs to be, I think, more quantification around the weighting of those before a decision is made 8 versus 9 games.
I agree with that. I fully agree with that.
And I don't know if we'll ever get there, because there is subjectivity when it comes to opinions within the committee too. But there has to be more objectivity on items that can be objective.
Yeah, I agree.
So
yeah, I think we're just gonna have to see, like, if we move to 9 conference games, like, what does that schedule look like? Or because there are some games that have not been played between we'll say specifically in the SEC, there are some games that have not been played in a long time. Like, when is the last time that you saw, you know, I mean, like, to be quite, when is the last time you saw Kentucky play like Mississippi State? When is the last time you saw, I mean, when's the last time Florida played Alabama in Alabama? Like, so there is a lot to be considered for sure.
I mean, this is what AI should be able to create these schedules. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, just, why are we making this so complicated? Is there like an app for that by now? Like, I just need to understand. I don't need to understand, because I know what it is. It's a lot of it is going to be driven by NIL and these quote unquote salary caps, and who's going to have, like, I don't know if you heard about this legislation about Ohio State not being able to play any more big noon games. Like, like, you can't get up and be ready for a noon game. That's on you, dude. Like, get it figured out.
I think it's so funny that the Texas Ohio State game, which is what, the first or second weekend of the season, is a big noon kickoff game. I know. And Ryan Day is like, hey, anyway, you would be willing to move this one back to prime time, like 7 p.m. And
you'd be like, no, get up earlier.
Nope. Yeah, nope. We're good. I love that.
We have 2 noon games in our entire schedule, so we're good.
Who's the drunk person at ESPN that let that one go to Fox? I mean, because the SEC has the rights to these games too, right? So I feel like that would have had to have been a negotiation. Maybe it's big noon because it's, well, Big Ten CBS usually. So how did Fox get this game? Oh, I forgot money. They probably put up the money for it.
But I'm like, that goes back to it. And what's weird, I will tell you this. What's weird is that Fox has not always been a player in the college football schedule. So this is kind of a new entry into Saturdays, which is going to be different, because I think that for a long time Fox had the market on Sunday when they were getting ready for actual NFL. So this is going to be very interesting as how exposure on television goes, because we're throwing in a lot of other different nuances now, because we've got Fox that's in, and now we've got the streaming services that are starting to, like, sprinkle their interest, because even for the NFL season, we've got NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, Amazon Prime, NFL Network, Netflix. I mean, there is going to be an NFL game on every single one of those platforms, so you can't tell me that college football is not too far behind if they're not already kind of talking about it. So the exposure and the spread of wealth is something that's going to have to be taken into consideration. And I'm sure that's what they're doing. And that's why all of these conversations are taking so daggone long. They shouldn't have to, but they are. So I think probably in the next 2 weeks, we're going to see probably some more finalized things trickle out of the end of these meetings and out of the end of these discussions, especially as they finalize the schedule, because a lot of these teams, their schedules are not in lock, and it is June. Like, I don't even know what some of these teams look like, because there are no spring games to look at. So we need to know. We're trying to get excited about it.
Also, why is it taking so long for there to be a ruling on this NIL shit? Like, it was supposed to be like in February, wasn't it? And then the can's been kind of kicked down the road. I think there was a thought that we would hear something by the end of this week, but I think that that decision also is holding the keys to a lot of the scheduling and
Mm-hmm.
like there's a lot of decisions that are also hinging on that as schools are thinking about how are we going to be distributing funds and what are
Well,
we
and I
planning
think that's
for from our NIL budget, right?
And I think that's what it is. It goes back to like establishing what these salary. Can you believe we're saying this? What these salary caps are looking like, where the money is coming from. I think, for a long time we kind of knew where the money was coming from because we were just like looking to the boosters and seeing what kind of checks that they were cutting. But now we've got individuals that are backed by big organizations that are making contributions that are sponsoring tuitions that are not tuitions, they're sponsoring scholarships. They're calling it scholarships for some, I don't know, rich person reason. They are now looking to alumni to contribute to these scholarships and NIL groups. So I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen with a checkbook that is infiltrating how this is supposed to be. And I think we were expecting NIL to be very, very clean cut, but now there's all of these nuances that are being thrown into the mix, and that is making it overly complicated. Another layer that starts with a dollar bill sign that is overcomplicating what should be some of the simplest times of NCAA athletics. And it's just not like that.
Well, it just makes the running of a P&L for AD that much harder when
Mm-hmm.
there's all these question marks because it's not just what funnels into college football or college basketball. It's like the impact on the gymnastics program and the swimming program and the
Mm-hmm.
softball team. And do you have to cut programs now that maybe are
Yeah.
supported by some of these others in order to sustain your NIL roster for college football or college basketball? And
Oh
the
yeah.
fairness of how much you're giving to women's sports versus men's sports. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a distraction of the ADs and why I think there are going to have to be front office GMs that manage a lot of this
Oh
moving
yeah.
forward, like we saw with Stanford, hiring Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
I think that, we're talking about the ADs having all this math equation stuff to negotiate, but this is going to be, I think, an even bigger distraction.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think that they were expecting this to be easy because they thought that football was the only thing that was generating income at some of these schools, but it's not. I mean, you look at teams like University of Oklahoma, they got a ball and softball team. And I mean, like, these girls are amazing. Texas Tech just has an athlete. She's Najee, she just signed she's valued at like $1.6 million in NIL deals. I mean, LSU has and they got a whole show talking about how money is just running not just their football programs, but their gymnastics program, their women's basketball program. I mean, I don't think that they were expecting the NIL to trickle into so many other sports, and that's what's causing a lot of issues. So you've got softball dominated schools, you've got gymnastics dominated schools, you've got baseball dominated. I mean, like, golf, no one has talked about the multi-million-dollar golf complex that just got built down there in Tuscaloosa because now that's becoming a massive thing. You've got collegiate athletes that are playing in PGA tournaments. So I think that they were not expecting to be hit from so many different parts of the athletic department when it comes to these NIL deals. And with that, they don't know. They've got so much money flowing in, they don't know what to do with themselves. So now they're just freaking out and they're like making knee-jerk reactions because they're like, oh, we'll find an appropriate place to put this money. Like,
Well,
meanwhile, we've
but
got this
I
kid on the
think
team making $9 million in NIL deals. Like, get it
so
together.
for some schools it is a big program, but if you look at how many schools have a great golf program, for example, across the
Mm-hmm.
country, what do you think? 15 or 20 have like probably programs that can sustain themselves. If all
Yeah,
of the other schools say, we no longer are going to have a men's or a women's golf team,
yeah,
what are the 15 that are left? What's going to happen to them? There's like no competition now. So it's kind of like a collapse of that entire sport. I know
yeah.
that's an extreme example, but I think that's something that we have to worry about. Think about like women's lacrosse. That's
Yeah.
big in a lot of areas of the country too. And if there's no funding for that, I mean, does that sport just go away completely? So I think
I
it's like a double-edged sword. It's horrible.
No, you're right. It is. It is a double-edged sword. And I think what sucks, but also what's good is going to be the development and the growth of some of these sports in a professional aspect. Like, I don't know about how you're seeing things up in Colorado, but in the Carolinas and Georgia, we're seeing professional volleyball teams. We're seeing professional lacrosse teams. I mean, the Atlanta area has a professional women's volleyball team. They got a professional lacrosse team. They got a professional women's tackle football team. They've got a professional women's flag football team. I mean, like, so I think as we see more of that being developed, then we'll see more funds come through. It's just almost like it's like a backwards trickle down effect, because it's big in college and now it's becoming big in the professional aspect, but will that money come back around from the professional to the collegiate side? That's kind of the question.
I'm putting my investment into slippery stairs. Marissa had a chance to get together last week, and we were like, I kind of feel like what our next road trip needs to be is down to Rock Hill, South Carolina,
baby.
and do some and sign up to be competitors on slippery stairs.
Okay, but I think we decided that like you are going to compete and I'm going to call it and be your sideline announcer. I thought that's what we agreed on.
It was. I'm trying to loop you back in though.
Nope.
Because I think it would be fun. I want to tear you down the stairs.
No, I think, slippery stairs. We're in a really weird part of the year where, I mean, both of our teams are out in the NHL. The Canes are out. Preds are out. I mean, like, there's nothing for us to do right now. So we're having to look at things like slippery stairs. And I don't know if you've heard about forklift racing, and we've got door frame hanging. I mean, there's like some insane stuff that is like falling out of the interwebs on YouTube right now as far as sports. Like, we are just inside this like less than 100 days until college football, and like, I don't know what to do with myself. I really don't. Like, we might have to just like go post up in Rock Hill and see if someone wants to recruit us for their cornhole team. I mean, I just don't know what else to do with myself.
I would love that. I would love that. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't it be so fun?
I would love it. I'm not very good at cornhole, but I would love it. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's our next field trip.
Rock Hill, South Carolina. Get ready for us.
Rock Hill, South Carolina. I'm signing up for slippery stairs. I'll let you know if I'm chosen as a contestant. I feel like this podcast could like propel my application to the top of the list.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Consider this her audition tape.
Yeah.
Notice how I said her audition tape. I'll be calling it.
And you'll be supportive, I hope. Not just
I will be very
bashing
supportive
and making fun of me the whole time. Okay.
Are you kidding me? I would be your biggest supporter. I would be like, elbow that bee in her neck. You got this, Rach. Kick her in the clavicle. Like, I would be your biggest fan. I would be your biggest fan.
I need to start exercising more, like weightlifting. I need to get in shape for this a little more than I am right now. So maybe I'll start my slippery stair training today.
Well, you have to, because once football season starts, we're going to be running out in the field with the football team. So you got to get ready now. We don't have much time.
I'll let my kids try to tackle me down the stairs. Like, that's like real life training, right? Those minions like, try to pull mom.
100%.
I feel like their dream.
I love that. That's absolutely hilarious.
Well, thanks for your time today, always.
Cheers, girl.
We gave Lou the weekend off. He's working hard on his wind bets, I'm sure, but we'll check in with him next week to see what's going on. All right. Well, cheers, everyone. We will see you next week.
Bye.
All right. Bye.